Is it right to give 16 and 17-year-olds the vote? Earlier, the Prime Minister confirmed plans to lower the voting age by the next election.
I think it's really important that 16 and 17-year-olds have the vote because they're old enough to go out to work, they're old enough to pay taxes, so to pay in. And I think if you pay in, you should have the opportunity to say what you want your money spent on, which way the government should go. So I'm really pleased that we're able to bring more young people into our democracy and give them the chance to have a say over how their taxes are going to be paid and what they're going to be used for.
OK, so the old idea, no taxation without representation. However, one survey has found that half of teens don't actually want the vote. Only 18% said they would definitely vote if there was an election tomorrow. The Tories have accused Labour of a vote grab to help them cling on to power for longer. Marvyn, what do we get from 16 and 17-year-olds being able to vote?
I think we just get the fair representation. The thing that's unique about voting compared to other things that may occur between the ages of 16 and 18 and what you're legally allowed to or not allowed to do is the voting terms are 5 years long. So if you are 16 years old and you vote in that election, the next one will be 21. And I think when 18-year-olds are voting, they've already, most of them turn 18 and miss out on an election cycle. So they're not being fairly represented for up to 3 years of their life cycle. And I think that's where the problem comes in. And that doesn't mean that we have to keep going lower and lower, but I do think at 16, you are responsible, you are equitable because you are paying into the system. So having a say is a fundamental right. I think the last thing that's really, really loud is that the country has been shaped for the last probably 12 to 15 years in a bit of a shaky direction by people over 60 voting against the interests and the futures of young people. And now we have a cultural shift where potentially that vote is now being equaled out with more young people who are basically going to live the next 50 years in this country now having a say on what is created for them.
But it's a say that those statistics say that many of them don't even want. They wouldn't use.
And that's absolutely fine, but the democratic right is the right. And then if you choose not to participate in that right, there are many 40-year-olds who don't vote, which is absolutely their right to say so. And there are many people now who are 16 who can be engaged in the political conversation earlier, which increases the opportunity of them being in it for the long haul. A lot of people will become disenfranchised with politics just from fatigue, from the amount of conversations that go on a daily basis, whereas this high group of energy people who definitely want to have a say, even if it is the half of them, is great for this country.
I mean, we can criticise young people for being disengaged, disinterested. That curiosity, the earlier that you get people involved with the world around them and give them the opportunity to shape it, the more likely they are to see the meaning and significance of democracy.
OK, so when I'm in London, I live in a house of teenagers, and I was having a conversation with my nephew, who's 19, last night, about why it's not a good idea to hang your T-shirts on the line by the shoulders, because you might end up with pointy-shouldered T-shirts. Now, that is the level that I'm dealing with this 19-year-old. So the idea that he might vote is a bit worrying. I understand the democratic argument. I absolutely understand the self-preservation argument, because we know a lot of young people will be on TikTok and on, they tend to lean left. I leaned left when I was that age. So it might benefit. Although, having said that, a lot of young people also support Nigel Farage. So it could be that it's the far left and the far right. So I'm not anti it. I am concerned about on what basis, because Marvyn said contributing. I don't know any 16-year-olds who are contributing financially to the country. They're all living with their parents, and trying to get them to go and get a job is quite difficult. We know that a lot of young people are economically inactive. So I love this idea that you've got these 16-year-olds who want to know why they're having this level of national insurance taken out of their pay packet. I just don't know any of those. The ones I know are sat in their bedroom looking on TikTok.
A lot of them may have part-time jobs and pay tax.
Not that many,
I think that's a culture and a class divide, because in my world, my community, my family, everybody is working from 16 doing something and contributing to something. And that's, for me, is what we're trying to create in this country, is an engaged, hard-working group of young people. And actually, this will contribute to them creating the conditions that they can go and work in, which at the moment is harder than ever. Trying to get a job at 16 is almost impossible.
I just get the feeling, kids do go quiet in their late teens, but I always feel there's a lot going on. They're trying to deal with a lot of different things. What they say to us is not necessarily what they're thinking.
I have many conversations with the assaulted teenagers, my sister's kids and my kids, and we had a conversation about gender recently. Now, it's fairly clear where I stand on this. And one of my other nephews, who I think is 21 now, issued the amazing phrase, chromosomes are not magic. And I thought, goodness me, he can legally vote at the moment, and yet he believes that lunacy. So that's a concern.
Yeah, but maybe that's one of the reasons they don't want to share that stuff with you, because they already know how you think. I want to have a look. Have a look at this graph. This is the last election, 2024 election, and this is broken down by age range. And you can see there, you're absolutely right. In that lowest quartile, which is 18 to 24, the Labour vote actually drops off very slightly. So Labour's idea, if this is a kind of gerrymandering, you know, where you're trying to get to that younger vote who we feel will be more left-leaning, that might not come true, because if you carry on that curve through, actually reform could start to do even better. Look, 18% voted reform within 18 to 24, maybe 16 to 18 will look at Nigel Farage as a character that they relate to. That might not come
I think
true.
there's what's happening in America, I think it might begin to happen here, which is there's a begin with a sex breakdown, with young women are left, young men are more to the right. And that will be interesting to see how that plays out, if this is going to happen. Obviously, they think they have to change the law. I mean, they have to vote for it. Let's see what happens.
I mean, I wonder if there's an argument to say that women under the age of 18, 16 to 18 are much more mature than men between the age.
No, I've got one of those.
Young men are very much right-wing until they have to date, and then all of a sudden it shifts.
Okay.
And so
I don't
we've seen
know.
trends online where women have said that they've actually gone on dating apps, met people, and then found out that they were right-wing, and they've hid it until they've got a couple of dates down the line. So there is a cultural shift that will go on, but I think this is fundamentally good for the country, that more people are being heard every 5 years, because we have had quite a big very tumultuous couple of years, and it'd be great to have some stability.
It would be very interesting to hear what those young people have to say, you know, and hear what, you know, their opinions expressed. It could change the way we all think. Anyway, let's take some calls. Marguerite is in Lancashire. What do you think? This is going to happen, Marguerite. Breaking news today. 16 and 17-year-olds will get the vote in the next election.
Good morning.
Morning.
I don't actually agree with it, because if you have somebody who is 16 or 17 years of age and they commit a crime, they're not allowed to, the media can't have their name in the paper, so why would we want to give them a vote?
OK, so they would be responsible for that crime. They would face the penalty that goes with it, Marguerite. I'll get that checked. I'm sure you're absolutely right. But is that the dividing line we want to make? With the moment where the press gets to name someone? Is that where they stop being a child?
No, until they're 18 years of age. I don't think a 16 or a 17-year-old pays much attention to what goes on in politics. So I couldn't see the point in giving them a vote at 16 or 17 years of age.
At that age, they can, you know, go out to work, they can fight for their country, they can die for their country.
They can't get a tattoo.
If it comes to that, they can't get a tattoo.
Pierce their tongue.
Yeah, that's it. We should only extend voting to those people with tattoos now. I'd love to see that. Marguerite, how about that? If you're asking people to take on adult responsibilities like paying their taxes, you know, fighting for their country, isn't that the moment that you say you get to decide on your future? Because they will have more future than we will.
Yes, I appreciate that, but somebody 16 or 17 years of age won't be earning enough money to pay tax at that stage. You talk to 16 or 17-year-olds, they have absolutely no interest, or the majority of them don't have any interest in politics, so they don't even know what's going on. They don't even read a newspaper, and they don't look at news. So they don't
I think that's a good thing.
Well, Marguerite, they might get their news from very different places from the rest of us.
Well,
they might be looking on
do.
TikTok. They might be looking on YouTube to establish what's going on in the world. And some of them might be very informed, but they might just get it from a different place.
Well, I agree that's possibly where they do get their information from, but they literally do not know what's going on.
Well,
it's so interesting, because when I speak to young people, because it's like the generation that was all the kids that were from my peers and siblings, and now have teenage kids, and they're so engaged. They have so many opinions and ideas. When I sit with them, they talk about who they are and what they want for themselves, what they're doing with their career, what they think about the world. You can't stop them. And I do think maybe it's a slightly divide of who we're speaking to, but I'm so engaged and I'm so happy that they're engaged, because I wasn't engaged at 16. And now the information is so available to them through social media, they have formed views early.
Yeah, but it is very siloed information, and that is a concern.
In what
Certainly
way?
when I was growing up, because there wasn't social media, there was the BBC, there was the ITV News, there was newspapers, and there was a breadth of information. And now, and I'm as guilty of it as the next person, what comes up on your feed reinforces what comes up on your feed. And with my kids, they're not seeing things from a broad spectrum. They're funneled down one particular. I mean, I've got one particular kid who's very into the whole queer culture thing, which obviously, again, is not something that I agree with, and cannot see the world beyond that.
I think these opinions for young people, particularly from my experience, tend to coalesce around certain ideas. And Marguerite, what I would say, if you really want to find out whether kids have any interest in politics, ask them what they think of Donald Trump. And that will get you a reaction. And you will find out just how engaged they are with things that are beyond our shores.
And that will be
even.
based on absolute knowledge, lack of knowledge.
Might not. Maybe not. Maybe not. There's depth there. There's depth there, honestly. I want to take a note. Thanks for your call, Marguerite. Janice is in Essex. What do you reckon, Janice? Does this make sense? 16 and 17-year-olds, give them the vote. They've got it.
No, hi Matt. Lovely to speak to you again twice in 1 week. How lucky am I?
You're on our frequent flyers list. You get, you get a free. If you make 5, you get a free coffee, Janice.
I just want to say, look, I heard a judge say a 25-year-old that committed multiple rapes on a young girl wasn't cognitively able to make a decision. So if you're saying that about a 25-year-old, I'm not knocking young people at all. I'm not. There's a load of young people out there that are as bright as buttons. But I do think if you cannot be responsible for your actions of something that you do that's in, let's say, a violent nature, how are you going to be in control of deciding what happens in our country and how we vote?
How about this,
but
Janice?
Most of them will vote reform.
Well, will they, or will the ones that aren't interested just not turn up? It'll be a self-selecting group of those who take an interest in the future of the country. Those are the ones that will make it to the ballot box, and the other ones will off be doing something else.
I also just think that
hold on.
Sorry,
that is
Let's see,
brilliant.
Janice. Yeah, go on.
Sorry? No, I think that's brilliant, but I think that, if you just give somebody something, are they really ready for it? Because have they got, I know you get all the information from all other avenues, but I don't know. I think a lot of people today just look at something. I think young people of that age are more interested in their GCSEs, what they're going to do further in life. I think they're more interested in being an influencer and everything else.
Well, if they are...
The easy way.
If they are, they won't tick the box. They won't turn up. Janice...
But then don't give it to them then.
Well, the ones that do... will do. Do you see what I'm saying? That group... Anyway, I think we're on the same page, Janice. Thank you for your call. We'll take another one. Carla's in Gloucestershire. What do you reckon? Is it time? Has the time come for 16 and 17-year-olds?
Hello, I think it has. I would have loved to have had the chance when I was 16 or 15. And I think it engages young people at an early age to think about who they're going to vote for. And I think, I was very lucky because I went to a school whereby they actually taught us, about various parties and, what the parties stood for. But I think I would have just loved this opportunity.
Carla, do you think that, we get to vote typically once we've left school? There's an educational opportunity there where you maybe have an election while you're still at school and you have the power to vote. That's a moment where you can get that context from teachers, whether it's a history class or PHSE, whatever it might be. That's the chance to say, have you really considered the issues here?
Yes, I agree. But to actually physically go down, I remember when I voted for the first time and I was really excited. And I honestly think that, the younger generation today are so mature and they do know what's going on. They know about Trump, certainly the ones I speak to anyway, and they're much more aware than I ever was. And I would have just loved the opportunity.
I don't get the sense with the young people that I meet that they're really interested in opinions other than their own.
Maybe they just don't agree with you, Lowri.
No. Well, the point that's also true. Why would you ever agree with your parent? That's also true. But I went to a graduation last week, right? And they gave you a programme for all the parents, and that was lovely. And then when I looked at the programme, this was a graduation for a law degree. It featured rainbow stairs and a pride flag on it. Why? Because that would be regarded as normal. And I bet you if that's what's going on in education at the moment, who on earth is going to put the argument for right of centre parties? Nobody, because you'd be a social pariah.
That's their normal.
Every right party has to create its own appeal in its own way. Believing that we should create a equality of outcome. If people aren't interested in right-wing ideas when they're young, that's just because they're not interested in right-wing ideas. As you said, when you were young, you were quite liberal, and as the graph says, as you get older, you seem to go more right-wing, and that's the cycle.
There's no law that says young people have to be interested in left-wing ideas.
But there's a huge social pressure to not be a bigot, which particularly bears down on young people.
Air quote that.
Because I don't believe in the term. I don't believe in the term.
I think that's kind of the universal.
I think it's used as a way to control people, and very effective with young people. Less effective with women like me.
One more call. Anne's in Dumfries and Galloway. Anne, are you happy with the idea that 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote at the next general election?
Yes, because I think if a 16, 17-year-old can join the army, why shouldn't they be able to vote for the country they live in?
You had the Scottish independence referendum. 16 and 17-year-olds voted in that. Did you feel that was the right time?
Yeah, they've been able to vote in Scotland at 16 for a while now.
And that makes sense to you. And do you feel like it's their future? Is that part of your thinking? They're the ones that will be shaped by the election.
They don't have to vote, but they do it if they want to.
OK. Listen, thanks, Anne. Thanks for that call. Obviously, that's the fact in Scotland and Wales for some elections. 16 and 17-year-olds have been enfranchised. It doesn't feel like the world's fallen apart. It will be very interesting to see what happens when we get to that point, but we're going to move on.